The Criterion Collection curated order of the Ingmar Bergman films is presented in this box set, Ingmar Bergman Cinema, is divided into certain groups. Now, these groups are given the names of Opening Night and Centerpiece 1 and Centerpiece 2 and Centerpiece 3 and Closing Night. So you've got these Opening Night, Centerpiece 1, 2, 3, and then Opening Night, Centerpiece 1, Centerpiece 2, Centerpiece 3, and then Closing Night. So groupings of 5 groupings. And you have the Criterion Collection curated order, basically putting the films of Bergman's filmography in these groupings for a particular reason. So what I want to do now is I'd like to talk to you about each particular grouping in the Criterion Collection curated order, and talk about the films as they appear in each of these groupings of the Criterion Collection curated order. So again, I won't be mentioning the titles from the outset, but I will be giving spoiler warnings as I go along. So if you are wary of listening to the curated order, please stop this particular video and come back when you are finished watching, in this case, Opening Night, because I am about to talk about the films of the Opening Night. Okay, you're back, my friends. So I am going to talk about the films as they appear in the Opening Night grouping of the Criterion Collection curated order. And I don't want to talk about the films in specific detail. So even if you are listening now and you are listening to the curated order of Opening Night, if you haven't seen any of the films, please, I'll try to be as spoiler-free as possible, but I will be talking about some themes. So, first of all, let me just list you the names of the titles. Okay, so Smiles of a Summer Night is the first film. Next is Crisis. Next is A Ship to India. Next is Wild Strawberries. Next is To Joy. Next is Summer Interlude. Next is Summer with Monica. Next is Dreams. And last is A Lesson in Love. Okay. So, I'm going to be talking very generally about these films now. So if you are wary about being spoiled in any way, shape, or form regarding any of these films, I would suggest that you stop this video. I won't be giving away any specific spoiler details, but I will be talking very generally about the themes of these films. So if you are wary about being spoiled even about the themes of the films, I would urge you to stop this video now and then come back when you have seen all the films, or when you are comfortable enough to discuss or hear discussion of the themes of these films. Okay, so you are back, or you're still here, which means that you're okay listening to a thematic discussion, a very generally worded thematic discussion of these films. Okay, so these films are in this order in Opening Night, which is how should I put it? At first I was a little bit surprised when I watched these films in this particular order, or when I first learned of the curated order. And when I watched the films, I didn't quite know why they were being presented in this order to begin with. But as I was going through the films, I think I realized why this happened. And I think the curated order here in the Criterion Collection Opening Night is superb. So let's begin with the first film, which is Smiles of a Summer Night. Now, this is from 1955, I think. Yes, 1955. So, yes, so this means that this is a film that comes in a particular point in Bergman's career. And this is a film that has Bergman enjoying great international acclaim. and he is given so much attention from this film. And then after this film, he enjoys worldwide success with the films that are to come in the late 50s and the early 60s and then beyond. So this is, for many people, this is the film that starts his international acclaim. So in that respect, I think it's a very fitting film to begin with. This is the first film that is in the Criterion Collection box set. So I think that's a very fitting place to start in that context. In terms of themes, however, this is a fascinating place to begin because this film is essentially about couples. We've got couples that are together. Either they are married, or they are maybe having a romantic fling, or maybe some couples have had romantic flings in the past, but they have broken apart. There may be relationships between fathers and sons. There is also sexual tension and also temptation in terms of couples maybe breaking apart and maybe rearranging in different configurations. So it's essentially a game of romantic musical chairs where you have certain couples that are together at the start of the film, and maybe they are undergoing some kind of maybe change or some kind of mismatch or crisscross, or trying to confront what it is they're really feeling, and maybe that is taking the form of affairs of the heart, sexual flings, and the like. And so you've got this presentation in this film, Smiles of a Summer Night, of many different couple dynamics. So you're talking about the dynamic between a man and a husband and wife. And you're talking about the dynamics between, let's say, a man and a woman who are not married, but maybe who are having a romantic fling, an affair. You're talking about the dynamic between a man and a woman, where one side loves the other, but maybe the love is unrequited. Or it's only one way. And then you have the dynamic of couples coming together purely for sexual gratification. And then you have the dynamic of rivals coming together, maybe rivals who are rivaling over the same romantic interest, and they're coming together either as rivals or perhaps something more. And then you have the dynamic, of course, of parent and child, father and son. So there is a lot going on, and also mothers and daughters as well. So there's a lot going on here in terms of the various combinations of relationships that are going on. And of course, there are some relationships that take precedence over others, sure, at least in the context of this film. You know, this film is not very long, so you can't give equal time to all the relationships. But this is a fine place to start in the Criterion curated order, is it not? Because here we have a general overview of different kinds of relationships, and Bergman's films are filled with an exploration of all sorts of relationships and their permutations. And so I think to have a film like Smiles of a Summer Night start the whole set off is brilliant, because you have a film that basically presents a lot of these permutations, and Bergman's films will essentially take maybe one permutation and then explore it within the context of a single film. And then maybe another Bergman film will then take another similar relationship and then explore it within the context of another film. And then that kind of exploration goes on. So to see Smiles of a Summer Night start the whole thing off, you get, of course, a great film in and of itself. But as the chronology, or as the curated order progresses, I think I realized that this film was great to start off with, because once you have this film, then you go to the next films in the order, and then you get the various permutations of the different relationships that you saw in Smiles of a Summer Night. It's an absolutely inspired choice to begin with. And then with that in mind, the next film in the curated order is Crisis. Now, Crisis is his first directed film, and Crisis is a film that, to be very broad, it's a film that is at its heart about the relationship between mothers and daughters. And you have this idea of what is the constitution, what is it that makes up the relationship between a mother and her daughter, and how is that affected when you've got a daughter who is growing up, who has gone through puberty, and who has grown into a young woman who is about to find some kind of liberation as an adult, and I mean that both intellectually and spiritually and sexually, and also in terms of wanting independence and wanting freedom in a very general sense. So you have this in the context of a mother-daughter relationship. And also you have this idea of what constitutes a mother-daughter relationship. Is it something that is merely formed by virtue of a blood relationship? Or is it something that is beyond the blood relationship? And is it something that can be forged despite that relationship not existing? So this exploration, mother-daughter relationships, again in the context of a young woman sort of awakening into awakening into adulthood, I think is fascinating. And it coming after Smiles of Summer Night, I realize the contextual significance of this film in the grand scheme of Bergman's filmography. And it's great because I never really thought much of this film to begin with. I thought when I saw this film for the first time in early Bergman, I just thought of it as, oh, it's Bergman's first film. It's okay, but I don't really like it. But now, seeing it in the context of the curated order, I realize, my goodness, the relationships here, the mother-daughter relationships that are being explored, this is like a permutation from a relationship that we see glimpses of in Smiles of a Summer Night. So to have Crisis come after Smiles of a Summer Night is brilliant. And then after Crisis, you have the film A Ship to India. Now, A Ship to India is interesting because here you have the focus being on the relationship between a son and his father. A brilliant juxtaposition. So first you had Crisis, mothers and daughter. In Ship to India, you have son and his father. And you have here what could be a slightly negative connotation. It's not the rosiest of relationships. Let me just say that. So here you have again, what is the constitution that makes up a relationship between a son and his father? And here you do have a father-son relationship, but arguably it's probably a relationship that is seen more through the eyes of the son, or maybe seen more through a sympathetic lens from the son's point of view. So it's from the son's perspective, perhaps, but still it is an exploration of a father-son relationship. And again, we see that stemming from the Smiles of a Summer Night exploration of the father-son dynamic in that film. So to have Ship to India in this order, again, an inspired choice by Criterion. And then from Ship to India, we get Wild Strawberries. So Wild Strawberries, this is so intriguing to me. You know, I always thought that Wild Strawberries would have been a great opening night first film to have, because it is so I think it's so welcoming and so warm, and it's so filled with the Bergman touch, so to speak. But to have it come here after A Ship to India is amazing to me, because in A Ship to India we had essentially the focus being on the son and the son's relationship to his father. Here in Wild Strawberries, we have the reverse, or the inverse, which is the perspective is now changed. Now it's on the father, the elder, and his relationship with the younger generation. So his son and the in-law, and also young hitchhikers and the like. So it's basically from the elder point of view. And this reverses the perspective that we saw in A Ship to India. So this is, again, a fascinating choice. And again, it shows a thematic evolution from Smiles of a Summer Night to Crisis to A Ship to India, and now to Wild Strawberries, where we have perhaps what could be the sort of culmination of Bergman at this particular point, where he's talking about not just the trials and tribulations and the tumult that can occur with respect to these filial, mother-daughter, father-son, son-father relationships, but also it seems like we are getting some kind of culmination of that discussion, and in a way that perhaps can be seen as being somewhat hopeful and optimistic. So a brilliant choice to go from these films to Wild Strawberries in the opening night curated order. Then from Wild Strawberries we go to the film To Joy. Now To Joy is from 1950, and now we're getting a different relationship. We're not focusing on father-son, mother-daughter relationship, but we're focusing now on the relationship between a married couple, a young couple, a couple that is engrossed or is involved in the world of art. In this particular case, it's the world of music. And so this is an interesting change of pace, right? It's still related to the opening night thread begun with Smiles of a Summer Night, because in Smiles of a Summer Night we did have relationships between married couples, of course. So perhaps this is the married couple component now beginning to be explored here into Joy. And we also get some infusion of the art world and music, and this idea of married couple, and set in the context of the music world and the classical music, and how that either coincides or conflicts or collides with the dynamic that exists between the man and the woman, the husband and the wife. And it is a charming film. It is a tough film, and it is a glorious film on many levels. And so to have it here in this context, in opening night, just shows, again, this idea of what happens between a man and a woman when they are married, and how that relationship develops or digresses or devolves over time, or how it picks up over time, and how it does so in the context of professional disappointment, and also disappointment in terms of expectations that one had at the start of a relationship versus the reality of the relationship as time passes. So prime Bergman, and fascinating to have here in this particular point in the order. And then from this film we go to Summer Interlude. Now this is an interesting jump, because Summer Interlude is a film about an artist who is thinking back on a particular episode in her life when she was younger and she had a romantic relationship. And so we are getting now a lovely juxtaposition between To Joy, which was, I would argue, a film that had both the married couple relationship and the relationship with the art world sort of going more or less hand in hand. Whereas here in Summer Interlude, we are talking about a relationship between a man and a woman, and it's a romantic relationship. And there is much fulfillment, and there's much discussion about what happens in that story, that's so-called Summer Interlude, as it were. But also there seems to be, not necessarily going hand in hand, but there seems to be some kind of collision with this relationship and the art world. In other words, they don't seem to be going hand in hand, but they seem to be mutually exclusive of each other. You know, there is the romantic element, and there is the element of being a true artist. And that is an interesting way to see the development of certain romantic relationships. And what is the role of romance between young lovers, and how that affects one, and what is the way in which we as human beings handle happiness, handle sadness, handle crisis, and handle trauma in the context of romantic relationships. How do we deal with that? And I think To Joy is one examination of that, but also Summer Interlude is another examination. I think the results are very different. And because they are very different, to have them juxtaposed in this particular way, coming one after the other in this curated order, is magnificent. Then from Summer Interlude, we go to Summer with Monica. Now, we are getting yet another romantic couple, or a relationship between a man and a woman. And it is a romantic relationship, it is a sexual relationship, and it is a relationship that is essentially a love story. So you are getting yet another example of an examination of what happens to a couple. And just like with the other films, you get the couple at the start of the relationship, and you see them travel through their journey together all the way to the end of the film, and how their relationship develops over time. And so we see here yet another thing. I think here we see this idea of the relationship, but also not just the relationship, how the man and woman act towards each other and how they respond to each other and how they grow with each other, but also we see the relationship in the context of the outer surroundings or the outer environment or the external. So how the external affects the internal and the intimate, and do the external factors complement the internal intimate factors, or do they collide with, or do they contradict these elements? And in the event of a contradiction, what is to happen? Will the externalities obliterate the internal intimate, or will the internal intimate survive these externalities? So this is a fascinating duality that's going on here with Summer with Monica, and this is yet another example of how we see the couple progress in the context of this sort of broader theme, in my opinion. So again, to have this film follow in the sequence from To Joy to Summer Interlude to Summer with Monica is just brilliant. And again, we're getting another permutation of the romantic couple or the married couple element here, and it is great. Then, after Summer with Monica, we go to the film Dreams. Now, Dreams is interesting because Dreams is about basically, there are two stories, right? There are two stories about two separate characters and their own particular adventures. And so both of their adventures involve a kind of romantic element. And either the exploration of a new couple, or the exploration of a couple that once was together but now have broken up, but now maybe they might come back together again. So you have, and then one is a younger woman and one is an older woman. So you have these stories here about different avenues of relationship, and the idea of happiness, and the idea of trying to find a certain kind of happiness in the context of a relationship with a man. Now, what does that mean in this world of dreams? Well, it could mean, for instance, trying to find happiness beginning with this idea of material need. And there's nothing wrong necessarily with wanting material things, things that cost money. And so can happiness blossom naturally from that dynamic, which starts inevitably from this notion of being attracted to material things? Okay. Or there's another exploration going on here, which is this idea of, can you have a relationship that can withstand time, and can you come back after being apart? And what does it mean to come back together again? And now that your situation, the circumstances have changed, what does it mean to come back together again? Is it possible emotionally to come back together again after some time apart? And what does that mean in terms of expectation versus reality? So again, these are further explorations of romantic relationships and the expectations of relationships, and how reality either fulfills those expectations or gets in the way of those expectations. So again, we have yet more explorations of these romantic dynamics that we see running through. Again, a brilliant through line so far, from To Joy, to Summer Interlude, to Summer with Monica, and now Dreams. And then from Dreams, we go to A Lesson in Love. Now, this is very interesting because A Lesson in Love is from 1954, and Dreams is from 1955, but Criterion chose to reverse those. So you had the later film, Dreams, coming first, and then you have the earlier film, A Lesson in Love, ending the opening night curated order. And this is an interesting choice because A Lesson in Love is focusing essentially on a married couple, and it's fragmented, it's disjointed, and it's out of chronological order, so you're going back and forth in time, so to speak. And this is an interesting choice because you have the essentially you have the discussion, or you have the focus on a marriage, and the marriage has been on for many years, and it seems a bit rocky, but you go to their past and how the married couple got together and how they met and all this story that transpires, and you see the beginnings of cracks and fissures, but you also see the possibility of reconciliation. And in the event of reconciliation, what does that mean in this context? Is reconciliation a pure reconciliation, or is a reconciliation some kind of partial happiness, or happiness with concession, so to speak? And if so, what does that concession mean? And if the concession does exist, then does that mean that the happiness is real, or is it just another fake happiness? So all these things come together, but they come together in a way that I think fills one with a sense of positive energy, with a sense of optimism, and with a sense of some kind of hopefulness going forward, no matter how ambiguous that hopefulness may be, depending on how you view the situation in your own interpretation as a viewer of the film. So this is all, I think, to say that this is, I think, at once a very potentially, it could be seen as a potentially bleak film, but it's also undoubtedly an optimistic one. And so to have this be the finishing off point of the opening night is a perfect way to cap it off. You have this exploration of this married couple, and you had all these couples through these films going through some kind of basically some kind of test or tragedy or crisis, depending on the particular film or the particular story. And then you have this film, which is A Lesson in Love, which you're talking about. You're not necessarily talking about some kind of external crisis per se, but you are talking again about the couple on their terms and what it means for them to exist with each other, or to exist as themselves within the context of this thing called their relationship. And to see that develop in the film A Lesson in Love is, I think, it really comes to the fore, especially at the end of this journey from the film To Joy, and from Smiles of a Summer Night, in fact. So to have Smiles of a Summer Night start this off and then to end it with A Lesson in Love feels very right to me. So, okay, so that is the quick overview of the opening night films. And as you can see, the opening night films seem to be falling on some kind of themes of, relationships between people, right? And these relationships are either parents, children, or they are husband, wife, or they are lover to lover, boyfriend, girlfriend, that sort of thing. And what happens, what transpires when you have these relationships set in different contexts, tweaked oh so slightly to depend on the particular individual characters and character traits. So you have all these things going on, again, permutations or variations on a theme that we saw set very lovely, quite confidently in the film Smiles of a Summer Night. So a brilliant opening night to start the Criterion curated order. And this is one reason why I think the curated order is really way to go, because it showed me the significance of the early films, in particular Crisis and A Ship to India, and how they are essential. Even the early films are essential to the Bergman filmography, and this is why. Okay, my friends, so let me stop there, and in the next video I will be talking about Centerpiece 1. So I hope to see you then. Take care.